Well, good afternoon. Once again, my name is Diane Mahler, and I'm a state and federally licensed wildlife rehabilitator, educator, falconer, and eagle handler of birds of prey. I own and operate a bird of prey center near Milton, Wisconsin. I'm not open to the public. I am a nonprofit 501c3. I started rehabbing birds about 12 years ago. And some of you may remember me. I see so many familiar faces in this audience. You know, lady back there smiling. I probably remember your dog or cat's name before yours. I used to be the receptionist at the Edgerton Veterinary Clinic for about 7 years. How many of you came in there? I remember, yeah, quite a few people. That was a lot of fun. So it's really fun for me to be here today. Just a few things I'm going to go through before I formally begin my program. One is, this is Wapaha. He is a golden eagle. He's been in captivity for 10 years, and I'm going to talk a whole lot about him later in the program. Just very, very important, especially after the program. Parents, please keep an eye on your children. Do not let them go up to this bird. You cannot touch him. You cannot pet him. He's tied on that perch. This is what he's trained to do, is to sit, tolerate people. Very relaxed, very comfortable bird. I had this bird at the Wisconsin State Capitol in January for the inauguration ceremony. And he sat through that with thousands of people and rows of media. He can certainly handle a very, very nice, respectful audience like this today. So the only thing that distracts him is I saw a couple people walking by here, and then he was a little distracted by outside the window. But other than that, he'll just sit there and pretty much be fine. So, but you know, they're very, very powerful birds, and if he were to grab somebody with a foot, I mean, you know, that could just be a very dangerous thing. So I have a lot of insurance liability issues with these birds. Okay, I have some really neat little cards of some of the birds I have at my center. Some of these are cards of birds that are my education birds, my falcons, or birds I've rehabbed. And when I go into schools, it's a great way to encourage children to interact in the program. So we have a nice number of children in this audience today. So we're going to let the children always have the first opportunity to answer questions. There are 5 groups or species of birds of prey, and those are the kinds of birds I work with. Sometimes we call them raptors because they have a large hooked beak and large talons on their feet for grabbing and tearing. They are a predator bird. Let's see if you guys can name them. If you raise your hand and you answer a question, or you can name one of the 5 species of birds of prey, I'll give you a card, okay? Okay, so let's start.
Eagle?
Eagles. There's about 60 types of eagles worldwide.
Wait, owl?
Owls. There's about 205 species of owls.
Hawks?
Hawks. There's about 50 types of hawks in the world.
Vultures?
What did you say?
Vultures?
Vultures. Almost nobody guesses that one. That is so cool. And the last one? Falcons. There's about 45 different kinds of falcons. So today, I brought one of my birds on my education permit. I do multiple things. Some people do just falconry, just rehab, just education. I kind of somehow got involved in all of it. So there you have it. As I mentioned, I am a nonprofit. I do not receive a paycheck from the DNR for the work that I do. Feeding them, caring for them, housing them, medical bills, the birds I take in for rehab, and my education birds come out of mine. And my husband David over here, who I could not do this without him. Stand up, Dave. He's also a falconer. We do this together. I rely on public donations. I received a donation to be here today. Thank you. That will help to offset the cost of feeding these birds. Last year, Dave and I incurred about $30,000 in expenses just for taking care of the birds. And to take an eagle in that has lead poisoning, just the medicine can be up to $500 to treat them. And again, there is no kickback. You know, I've told people I've been waiting 12 years for my first paycheck from the DNR, but they do license and permit what I do. If you find injured wildlife, as many people do, and the last couple of weeks with all these weather fronts moving through, I've been very busy with a lot of hawks and owls getting hit on the road. The best thing you can do is keep that animal dark, quiet, and covered. You know, we always want to feed everything. Sometimes feeding it the wrong thing can be more harm than good. call the DNR, call the Humane Society, call the police department, and they'll try to find a wildlife center. Now, remember, we're all volunteers and we have daytime jobs, so sometimes you can't get a hold of us. Just keep that animal, in a box, a recycling bin, something away from people, away from children, away from pets, because sometimes, they're really scared and they're really stressed and they can bite, scratch, or hurt you, okay? It's really important for everybody to understand that the birds that I do bring, I do a lot of school, library programs, public community events such as this, are not birds that are in the rehab process. So in other words, I just picked up a red-tailed hawk a couple days ago that was hit on the interstate. That bird will not be coming out and doing any programs. Probably have to go in for an x-ray. It has a broken leg this week to the vet. My goal is to put those birds back into the wild. Birds like Wapaha, who have been through the rehab process, it takes probably 500 hours of training just to acclimate them, to tolerate you, to pick them up, sit on your fist. Usually, a lot of times when I bring Wapaha to programs, I hold him for like 5 minutes, talk about him, put him back. He's a 7.5-pound eagle. That's all he weighs, 7.5 pounds. Out here, even with an arm crutch, it's like 100 pounds after a while because your arm tenses up. But this perch, and Dave made this perch. This is great. He's trained to sit on there. He can come out. He can be out for displays. He can be out a long time. He likes to be on here. Eagles are very intelligent. This is very stimulating for him. And so he'll just sit here and, and did he? Oh, okay, like no. Sometimes when I have a very small group of children at a school, like I go to a little country school, they'll sit on the floor and then I show my slides on this and they think that's great. So it's kind of fun. So anyway, the other thing I just want to mention is that birds of prey, along with most of our birds, robins, blue jays, cardinals, are protected by law, which means if you have feathers, nest, you can't steal a nest, you can't steal eggs. You are not supposed to pick up feathers. If you pick up, like this is one of Wapaha's feathers he molted. This is from a barn owl. And this is from a red-tailed hawk. It's a felony. And the reason for that is many years ago, people trapped birds of prey, and they would cut their wing feathers and their tail feathers off. They'd let them go, and they couldn't fly. And they'd use the feathers for arts and crafts. We'll just hold. I'm going to ask you to hold questions so I don't lose my train of thought here. Plus, this gentleman is videoing here, so I just kind of want to keep it going. But I'll take questions later. So anyway, they would let the birds go, and obviously if you did that, they can't fly. Okay, they can't fly, they can't hunt. They have to, hunt from the air or from a higher perch, and they're going to starve. Now, a bird like Wapaha, it would take 3 to 4 weeks not feeding him at all before he would die of starvation. So they don't find food every day. 80% of all of our raptors never live to see their first birthday. Many die of electrocutions, pesticide exposure, toxics. Illegal shootings still happen. To illegally shoot an eagle can be a $250,000 fine with jail time. And some just are not good hunters. It's estimated as many as 70% die just from a lack of food alone. So they don't find food every day. They don't, sometimes they can go a week or two without eating. And so that's when they start getting into real trouble. My program today, I'm going to gear it a little bit different. I sometimes come out and I talk about the rehab work I do and the education and show pictures of my facilities. Today's program is a little bit different because I just returned from the United Kingdom where I spent 2 weeks. I am a licensed falconer, which means I have special permits that I can have 2 falcons licensed and trained to fly and hunt with them. Falconry is the oldest sport in the world. It started 4,000 years ago in Asia, and it was a way for man to provide food for his family. It was the taking and training of a young hawk or falcon. You're flying that bird. The bird allows you to approach it when it catches something and come back when it doesn't. He just did what you call a rouse. That bird has 7,000 feathers on his body, and all he's doing, ladies, is going like this. Putting his hair in place, or his feathers in place like we put our hair in place. That's all he was doing. And they are molting right now, so he may molt out. He's molted some little feathers here. You'll see them go flying. Anyway, I am on the board of directors for the largest falconry organization in the world. I was elected to this last year, and I represent 5 states in the Great Lakes to the North American Falconers Association. And they had, there was an international falconry festival held in the United Kingdom where people came from over 60 countries that represented falconers, rehabbers, conservationists, endangered species programs. And I just did a presentation at the Milton Library about this the other evening. I could never afford a trip like this. The North American Falconers Association consists of there's about maybe 4,200 falconers in North America, Canada, Mexico, and the United States. There's maybe 2,500 members in NAFA. But it's not their policy to pay for this. But they wanted to send me and several others as a representative. And my community really came through and raised the funds to send me. And so I am very grateful. We Energy, some of you may know Steve and Randy Vicenzi, who own Vitech. They live here in Edgerton. Quite a number of other individuals who sent donations. And with that, I was able to go over there. So I'm going to talk a little bit about that experience because falconry is something worldwide, and it's really, you know, a mystery to so many people. They've heard it, they've maybe seen a bird, a falcon with a hood or something on its head, but they don't know it's something very, very unique and unique to get into. So with that, this young lady, what's your name?
Saskia.
Saskia? That's a beautiful name. Is going to help me run my slide program. So when I say to advance it, you're just going to push that down button, okay? Okay. Do you prefer the lights on or off? Doesn't matter. Does it off? Is there somebody that can hit the, maybe is there a light switch back there? This is where the festival was held. This is somebody's home. Can you imagine that? This is Englefield Estate. We didn't get to tour the home, but we got to use the grounds where this was where this was held. And, you know, if I were a little girl and somebody said to me, draw a picture of your fairy tale home, it would probably look like this. It was absolutely beautiful. There were, as I mentioned, many countries. There were the United Arab Emirates. It's a little country with a very large city called Abu Dhabi. And it's off just the very edge of Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia is kind of large, and then there's this little bitty neutral Arabic country. And they're very much into the falcons. I mean, it's on everything of theirs. They donated $2 million to this so that people, they could have good representation from their countries. There were people from Mongolia, Kazakhstan, Turkmenistan that live in yurts. And I'll show you what a yurt is. Where they don't have email, they don't have phones. They actually had to have somebody go out and literally hand them an invitation and talk to them and work all this out. That's how much it was to bring these individuals there. But they are the people living this and doing this and practicing this. Okay. There I am. This is our NAFA booth. So there were like tents and booths and everything set up all over. Okay. 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 The neat thing was there was 2 days where they brought school children in classrooms, and this was one of the reasons they wanted me to go over there, is because not every falconer goes out and does education like I do, and I do probably 90 to 100 programs in a year throughout Wisconsin. Sometimes I go over into Illinois and Minnesota as well. This was so much fun. Kids are kids no matter where you go. I did not take any birds with me, but they had a lot of birds on display there. I handed out the little cards. I took some of the posters and publications with me, and I spent an entire 2 days just talking with children. These children thought I had an accent, okay? So one little girl says, "Will you say banana?" And I said, "Banana." And then I knew what they liked, that real nasally that we have from the Midwest. And so then they were just kept going and on. Can you say Canada? And I said, then I did it really, Canada, you know. We have Green Bay Packers in Wisconsin, you know, they loved it. There was another gentleman from Arkansas who had a real thick Southern accent, and they loved that too. So they just try to get us to talk about anything, but they came from all over the United Kingdom for this. So it was wonderful to meet these children. A lot of them wear uniforms. And they only have 6 weeks off during the summer. That's it. Otherwise, they go to school year-round. Okay, next picture. This is one of their schools. We took I took my son's girlfriend with me. Dave, I was gone for 2 weeks, and Dave had a little difficulty getting off of work for 2 weeks. My daughter graduated from college. She lives in California, just started a new job. She couldn't go. My son didn't really care to go, so I asked his girlfriend, do you want to go with me? She just graduated from college with a degree in psychology from Whitewater, and she was a wonderful traveling companion to have a young person along with me who was so enthusiastic and energetic. So we did some touring in the countryside, and this is just a little school that was outside of town. Okay. As I mentioned, I met quite a few people from Abu Dhabi. They had a display, the largest display there. I never wanted to leave. The women were beautiful, and the men all wore their traditional sandals and white robes and whatnot. Okay. This is just a little piece of their display. They actually brought in their own sand because the sand in England isn't the right color for the display. They made you take your shoes off, but once they found out I was an American, a NAFA rep, and I flew Falcons, it was just a little bit different. I was invited to just come on the sand. You don't have to take your boots off or anything like that. So it was just a little bit of advantage, I think, to being a woman falconer over there. Okay, the next slide, please. This is just a woman I met. There were, like I said, a number of women, and they actually had an education center set up there for children, and they do programs worldwide. It's absolutely wonderful what they do. And her name was Mosa. Isn't she pretty? And you know, when they go home, I mean, this is just her traditional wear. They were actually, we got to know each other pretty good in 4 days. They were wearing capris and shorts and things like that under this, so just to let you know. Okay. These gentlemen were just two gentlemen, that were talking and educating. They gave me coffee. They gave me dates and figs. I had my fill of dates and figs in 3 days. They were very gracious. They wanted to send this staff home with me, but I had so many things it was hard to take on a plane, especially in coach. If any of you ever traveled on international flights, you're packed in there like cattle. Okay. They had a big center ring where they had displays where people were flying their Falcons. Like they had some gentlemen from Austria who flew 3 Falcons at once to a lure, which this is what this is. It's a lure. This is a way to call the Falcon back to you, and this is what I use with my Falcons. It's actually a visual. They identify this. You know, you could tie a little treat, a food on here, or feed them when they come back. And they like to chase this. It's kind of like a game with them. Horses were beautiful, and they had probably more dogs there than they did birds. Okay. These were yurts, as I mentioned. They're like round tents that are movable. It's incredible how they fold all these up, very small. And this lady was from China, and she sang for us. She was a beautiful singer. Okay. This man is 85. Look at him carrying that golden eagle. 85, he's from Mongolia. They had 3 elders there. One was 92, one was 85, and one was in his 70s. And he marched in the parade. I was impressed. This man carried that bird for an hour with the goldens. Many of the Mongolians, they will hunt on horseback with the eagles. It's very much part of their tradition. Remember, these are not, you know, people that go to always, you know, have grocery stores like we do. They use their eagles to go out and catch rabbit and fox so they can feed and clothe their children and their families. It's a culture. It's a way of life. These individuals were from Turkmenistan. I got to know them fairly well. None of them spoke very much English. They had a young girl with them, though, that did. Okay. This is Allie, who I took, and this is This gentleman is a minister in Turkmenistan. They're all falconers. This is his 18-year-old daughter, and she learned to speak English by a self-at-home study course. She was absolutely a wonderful young lady. Her name was Maki. Okay. These two gentlemen are from Japan. Everybody was encouraged to wear their native wear. That was what was so neat. And they cooked over fires. They would invite you, if you walk by and just struck up a conversation, so many people, to sit down and eat with them. Maki invited Allie and I the last day we were there to eat in their yurt, and we had boiled potatoes, rice, and horse meat. And these very good breads. And she brought out these beautiful little gold goblets, and then she brought out Diet Coke. It's funny. Okay. There's the horse. How'd you like to be this guy managing all these dogs? There were a lot of dogs. You need a dog to hunt with the birds. You need the dog to go out and find the game, the quarry. No hunting took place. Again, it's out of season. It was just a gathering to exchange information and to have fun and to meet people from all over the world. Okay. There's Allie and Maki. Very nice. She's beautiful. She made her own clothing. Beautiful, 18 years old. Okay. This is what we call a cadge. This gentleman's from Belgium. Less than 15% of the people there, English is their first language. Many people had interpreters. This is just a way that they used to carry the falcons. They'd go for hours and hours and hours, through meadows and fields and whatnot, rather than just on your arm. It was a way of carrying them easier. Okay. This is just a table at the Mongolian table. They make all their hoods, their equipment. They had whips. I don't know what they use whips for, but they don't whip, anything. But they did a whip display, though. It was kind of neat, but it had nothing to do with the birds. It was just kind of neat. And gloves and whatnot. Okay. These individuals were from China. This lady was an interpreter for most of the people from Asia. She spoke like Japanese, Chinese, Russian, German. She spoke like 7 different languages. She was a beautiful woman, too, inside and out. Okay. These gentlemen were from Russia, and they were a lot of fun. They could hardly speak English at all, but they invited Allie and I to have tea at a little campfire with them and some cookies that were very good. And by the time we left, we had chocolates, books, and all kinds of things. And the neat thing is after the festival, 2 days later, Allie and I spent 4 days in London, and we were walking across Westminster Bridge, and we ran into them in London. So we had pictures with them in front of Big Ben. It was really neat. Okay. These are just folks from Welsh, some children that were participating from Wales. Okay. These were some Americans. This is Steve Duffy. He's from Colorado. This is Ricardo Velarde. He's originally from Mexico. And I don't think I remembered him, Dave. He makes these little bells that you put on the falcon or the hawk or the eagle's legs so that when they fly or they get, you can't see them, you can hear them. He now lives in Utah. He was in the Olympics. He was an Olympic diver from Mexico 20 years ago. Very nice man. This gentleman is from Japan. His name is Kaya. And his father is the only falconer in Japan. In many countries, it's still a sport of kings and queens. Now, mind you, many countries, like in the UK, there is no public land. There is no public hunting. They don't have land anymore. Everything is privately owned in Europe. So in some countries, they don't permit it. They don't allow it. New Zealand does not. Australia does not. But now with up-and-coming generations, as they're getting into wildlife rehab and education, they are opening it up more. This gentleman was a representative for NAFA from Mexico. His name was Juan Carlos. Very, very nice. Okay. Just some eagles. This is a African crowned eagle, a Steller's eagle, and a Marshall eagle. So we only have the golden and the bald in North America. That's it, 2 types of eagles. So it was fun to see different eagles, and eagles that are half the size of Wapaha. They consider them eagles in other countries. This is Andrew Ellis. He is a very well-known, very well-respected wildlife artist. In fact, he's considered probably to be the best raptor artist in the world. What a nice young man. We have a mutual friend here in the United States, and he said, come on back. And to allow me to have, pictures with his artwork was just very generous and very nice of him. Isn't that pretty? That's a painting. While I was there, I met Prince Andrew. Prince Andrew is Prince Charles' younger brother. Now, when in London, I was telling, just people I met, wherever we were at talking, they weren't really impressed by that. And evidently it's because he's this far down, in line for the throne or whatever. But Prince Andrew came to the festival, and he had maybe 8 people around him, security. The Prince of the United Arab Emirates was there. He probably had 25 people around him with radios, dark sunglasses. There was a man carrying a tray of champagne and 3 very beautiful women in this whole thing. He presented a white falcon like this to Prince Andrew. It was just symbolic, just as an appreciation for letting us use your country for this. Not using your country, but, allowing the festival to be held there. So that was kind of neat. 60 Minutes was there too. Okay. This is just another painting. This is a North American goshawk. That was a beautiful artwork that was there. Okay. And then this is just kind of an overall picture. This here is the whole Abu Dhabi area backdrop behind there. It's a gentleman on a horse. He's swinging a lure like this, and the falcon's up in the air flying. So a lot of people came to this. It was a 3-day event. Okay. And then just a few more slides that I have before we get on to the birds. Allie and I spent a few days touring as long as we went that far. This is Winston Churchill's home. It was built 500 years ago. There's actually somebody who lives in half of it, so you can tour part of it. Beautiful, beautiful place. Okay. This is the English countryside. You'll go along and see rivers and little bridges. It's very beautiful. It rained every day. For like 10 minutes here, 10 minutes there. Okay. Look at the little dog. Isn't that cute? This is just a little village that we went through at the tea shop. They don't have screens on their windows. They have very few insects over there. And it doesn't get real hot over there like it does here. It was like in the 60s every day that I was there. Okay. This is just another picture of this little village we went through. I mean, this is just how people live day to day in the countryside. These homes are 300-400 years old that they live in. No siding. You're not going to. Everything is stone and brick over there. Thatched roofs. Okay. This is just another the little shops, and the flowers are beautiful, ladies. I don't think they don't. They said it's because they don't have the oppressive heat to burn them, and the gardens and it's so fragrant over there. You'd love it. Okay. That's me in front of Buckingham Palace. I was just, Allie and I stood there for an hour and a half. She wanted to see the changing of the guard, and she wanted to be front row center, and we were. And less than 5 minutes before they began, it started to rain, and they canceled it because they can't get their hats wet because they're made out of bears, so we didn't get to see it, but that's okay. Okay. That's Buckingham Palace. That's where the Queen of England lives. Big place, isn't it? Yeah, real big place. Okay. This is the Parliament, Big Ben. That was really fun, too. Okay. This is Westminster Abbey. This is where King Henry VIII was married to, I don't know, probably all of his wives. Who knows? This is also very beautiful. This is very, very old. I cannot remember when it was built, but it is over 500 years old. Okay. This is the Museum of Natural Science and History, and everybody in this room would love this. First of all, London is most proud of this building. This picture doesn't even begin to do it justice. It's a beautiful place. It's huge. Can you advance the slide? Okay. Yeah. They had a dinosaur display in there, and they had these animated big, like, Tyrannosaurus Rexes in there that would actually walk kind of up to you and put their head down and look at you and breathe and then scream at you. And it was pretty cool. I never wanted to leave. Okay. This is Hampton Court Palace. This was King Henry VIII's home. If you ever go there, allow yourself 3 or 4 hours to go through it. It's just huge. Okay. This is the London Eye. Allie wanted to go on this. This is the world's largest moving viewing mechanism in the world. These are like little capsules. They put 12 people in. There's 600 people on this at all times, and it moves so slow, you don't even know you're moving. And I'm not real keen on heights, but I didn't have any problem with it. I don't think many people would. Okay. This is a view from the top. So there's like Big Bend over there. This is the Thames River, and Buckingham Palace is over there. Okay. This is St. Paul's Cathedral, which was actually bombed during World War II. It was built in the 1600s. Just one quick story I have to tell you. There's 525 steps that go all the way to the top. And Allie wanted to do it. And I said, I'll wait for you down here. Okay? I didn't care to do that. I don't know that I could have either, to be honest with you. And so I was, you know, when you go into a church or cathedral there, you know, out of respect, you're supposed to cover your shoulders. And, you know, they don't make you leave, but it's just a respect. And so I wore a very nice black outfit, and I was just kind of sitting in the back, and they had a mass going on, and a gentleman that worked there walked up, and he said, "Where have you been? You're supposed to be up there in 5 minutes." And I said, "You must have me mistaken for somebody else." And he says, "Aren't you the professional singer?" And I said, "Oh, no, not me." And he says, "Do you sing? Because she's not here." And I said, "You can just ask my husband. Let's call him. Dave will tell you I am not a singer." But I said, if you can find any other reason for me to be up on that altar, I will go up there. It was kind of funny. So Allie came back. She goes, "Oh, I'm sorry I took so long. What have you been doing?" I said, "No, nothing, just waiting for you." Okay. This is the Tower of London, built 1,000 years ago. This is where they imprisoned people, and they cut their heads off and all kinds of things. This is where Anne Boleyn was beheaded, and several other individuals. Okay, go ahead. This is the gate, Traitor's Gate, where they brought you through. If you came through here, you knew that you were in big trouble. You went up the stairs, and they imprisoned you, and then this is where they threw the heads after they decapitated people. So, yeah, gross, huh? Okay. And last picture, this is Tower Bridge, built a long, long time ago as well. This was one of my favorite things. Allie and I, the last evening we were there, we decided to take an evening cruise on the Thames River. And the boat driver was so nice. He said, "If you folks don't all mind waiting 15 minutes, you'll get to see the drawbridge go up." And we did. And that was kind of the end of our trip, how we ended it. So it was a wonderful experience overall. And I will always be grateful to my community for thinking enough of me to allow me to carry these memories for the rest of my life. So, okay, now you sat through that, so we'll talk about birds some more. We can turn the lights on. I know. He's molting. Okay, he molted. Isn't that pretty? You know, Dave, maybe I can just stick these over there or something, or under there, or someplace. Okay. Boy, he really is molting back here. Okay, so this is Wapaha. He is a 10-year-old adult male golden eagle. His name means feathered spear in the Lakota language. This is as big as they get. The females are about 35% larger, as they are in all raptor species. When Wapaha was about a year old, he was recovered on a ranch in Wyoming. Another eagle came in and attacked him. Probably what he was doing was probably just minding his own business, eating, you know, a rabbit or something that he caught. And another hungry eagle, you know, very stressed, very pressed, came in and grabbed him, grabbed his spine. He had a puncture in his spine. So he has, you'd never know it by him sitting here, but he has a little bit of a neurological problem. He has problems sometimes with coordinating his feet. So stepping backwards, using his left and right foot simultaneously, meaning at the same time, he has trouble with that. So he's 90% of the time he's fine, 10% he's not. So he was placed with a friend of mine in Washington State who had him for 8 years. And he flew him somewhat as a falconry bird on rabbits and different, you know, smaller game. If this bird were to be released, he would not survive. He could probably feed himself, but what he's going to try to do eventually is take a mate. They mate for life, have young, and he's got to do all the hunting for her, the young, and himself. And it really is kind of just like a death sentence to all of them. So he's been in captivity for 10 years. He was transferred to me 2 years ago by my friend Brian. He had some serious health issues, so Wapaha will be here the rest of his life. Golden eagles are found everywhere in the world. They're the most abundant of the eagle species. They are found usually typically west of the Rocky Mountains in the United States. They need huge, wide open spaces. If you see big, dark birds on the river up near Sauk City, up on the Rock River, Yahara River, those are probably immature balds. A bald eagle does not get a white head till they're 5 or 6 years old. Okay, so up until that point, they're kind of what we call the salt and pepper look. They're dark, dark eyes, dark beak. But a golden eagle has a much smaller head. They're more hawk-like. A bald eagle will eat, what do they eat? Does anybody know? Fish. What else? Carrion. They eat a lot of carrion, actually. They are bullies. They are the pirates of the sky. And because of that, let me just backtrack. Golden eagles do not eat fish. They do scavenge, but they kill more. They typically eat prairie dogs. Sometimes, I hate to tell you this, but raccoons. Here I am at Sterling, North. Sometimes you don't want to hear that, do you, today? There's not a lot of them, I mean, where they're at out west, but they do something that size is the point that I'm trying to make. A lot of jackrabbits. They have been known at times to, kill a small lamb. Now, they cannot carry that off. They can typically only carry half of their body weight. The males, goldens and balds, average only in 6 to 8 pounds, and the females 9 to 12. Again, the females are larger. It's just the reverse in birds of prey. They build big stick nests on cliff ledges. They rarely, sometimes they'll sit in a tree, but they prefer a flat surface. When Wapaha's sitting on a flat surface, he looks more horizontal than a bald does. Okay, in flight, when you see them in flight, they do look different. Their heads are smaller. They have this beautiful amber eye. Their beak never changes colors. The first 1 to 2 years of a golden's life, they are black with 3 white patches, one on the underside of the tail and either on the underside of the wing. And then they molt, and then eventually they get gold feathers that go around the back of their neck. That's why they're called the golden eagle. They're also called the booted eagle because they have feathers to their toes. They're a very cold weather bird. They can take cold and warm. Just one is just as well as the other. They can see a rabbit 2 miles away. They can come in a stoop 175 miles an hour. They're as efficient hunting from 150 feet as 5,000 feet in the air. Very, very efficient hunters. Of course, the bald eagle is our nation's symbol of freedom because bald eagles are only found in North America, no place else in the world. His wingspan is about 6 feet, 6 to 6.5 feet. So the females, it's going to be a good 7-foot wingspan. 1 pound of his body weight are those feathers, and as I said before, they average about 7,000 feathers on their body. Being very good. He's like this a lot. I mean, he's just Brian did a very, very good job in training this bird.
Famous. Yes, you are.
He is. He's very, very well. Sometimes, as I mentioned to somebody earlier, if I have very small programs, children will sit in front and then we'll show the slides on here. They kind of think that's kind of neat. So, any questions that you have? Do you have any questions about him? Or about eagles, anything you want to ask? Because that's what I'm here for.
I have a question now whether I saw a bald eagle or whether a young white American eagle on the tree that time.
You probably, if it was up in...
an eagle, that's all I know.
Yeah, it was in northern Wisconsin and it was dark. It was more likely a bald. Some goldens were counted along the Mississippi in January. They will migrate from Canada through Wisconsin. Dave and I saw one, didn't we, David? Where was that? Not too far from our house, out on Town Line Road last year. And again, they can just kind of get off that migration, path or whatever, kind of separated, and but they'll find their way back. Okay, we're going to talk a little bit about the falcons here.
How many babies do they have when they
Oh, usually 1 to 3. If they do not find enough food to feed themselves through the winter months, raptors will not reproduce in the spring. Wait just a moment. They usually have about one to 3 usually, and they don't reproduce till they're about 5 years old. That's when they come into adulthood. Something I want to mention too is these birds grow incredibly fast. They go from an egg to 10 weeks of age. They're that big. So a red-tailed hawk will grow an inch in a day. And, you know, they're nesting usually in the spring. By the time they hatch, they learn to fly. They learn to hunt. They have to be on their own in the fall because it's tough love, you're out of here, you know. They have to, you know, grow and develop very quickly, yes.
What's their lifespan?
In captivity, he can live to be in his 30s. You know, in the wild again, you know, many of them never see their first birthday, but if they can get past those first, you know, 2 or 3 years, they have a good chance of maybe living 20 years in the wild, you know, provided, you know, they don't eat something that's infected. Oh, he is beautiful, isn't it? He's an absolutely beautiful, very proud bird. They're very, very intelligent. They're the most intelligent of the birds of prey, the golden and the bald eagles. Very, very smart birds. Very powerful feet. Those feet, I mean, when they grab, it's thousands of pounds of pressure. I mean, their foot is strong enough, folks, to kill a white-tailed deer if they wanted to. They don't usually, but they can, just to give you a comparison. Okay. Okay, so as I mentioned, I am a licensed falconer. I'm actually now, when you start in falconry, you have to become what's called an apprentice. So for 2 years, you do an apprenticeship under somebody experienced. You have to have licenses, take a written test. It's not easy, is it, Dave? No, I sponsored Dave. He knows. It is. And then as you move up, you become a general. You can have 2 birds, and you become a master. You can have 3 birds, and that's it. And it is very regulated for a reason. You know, I talk to a lot of hunters' education classes. You can come home at the end of the day and put your gun away, but your bird still has to be fed, watered, cared for 365 days a year. Okay? I brought 2 of my falcons. Just something I want to show before, because when I turn this on, he gets really excited. He thinks it's time to do something. A lot of people ask me, how does your bird come back to you? Because when I fly them, they don't have the leashes and the jesses on because, you know, that can get hung up. I mean, you just can't do that. So you take all the equipment off of them, and I put a little transmitter. These are expensive. I'm not going to pass these around. These are like $200. A little transmitter that goes on his little anklet, okay? And say like my falcon, my gyrfalcon is up 2,500 feet in the air. He can see 25 square miles. So he can say, well, toodaloo, Diane, I'm going to go see what's over there. You know, now, you know, usually they don't because they form a bond with you. You don't feed them before you fly them. You don't starve your bird, but you obviously that's what motivates them is they want to go out and catch something. So in the morning, you know, if you were to go and feed them, they're just going to want to sit and do nothing. So you take them out and you fly them. And again, it's a lot of work. I mean, it's the bonding, it's the getting them to trust you. It takes, you know, weeks and months of working with them. But if they do, this is just a little insurance, and it's also being responsible that, see how it beeps? This is what we call a radio receiver. Okay? See how it, so it's a way for me to find them. Now, usually we are not flying our birds until fall in winter months. You know, they're up for the molt through the summer. And plus there's seasons we have to follow for flying your birds, you know, and just to be very, very responsible. Last year, in the fall, I got very excited. I took time out. We were flying. I flew them to the lure. Sometimes I use this to call them back, or I do lure flying. Or I have a kite that I put up in the air. And eventually the kite he graduates in height, goes up about 1,500 feet. He goes up, he grabs a lure off of that and comes down, and I give him a treat. Well, he was going up to the kite last year, and all of a sudden a rake of pigeons came by, and I'm talking about my peregrine. And he took off, and he went right down in a cornfield. And, you know, I had telemetry on him, and it didn't take me too long to find him, but when I found him, he was walking up and down the rows looking and looking, because they don't fly just like straight up. You know, they have a big heavy wing load, so they take off. And I know that bird was just as happy to see me as I was to see him. But it was just across the street, okay? It wasn't a big cornfield, you know, with thousands of acres or anything like that. But it also makes you think and makes you understand how hard it is for these birds to survive out there. Because just think about how many of them do that, you know, on a day-to-day basis. Okay. So I left some of their falconry equipment on them today just for your benefit so you could see. This is Time. I named him Time because time flies when you're having fun. And again, I'll walk around a little bit, but don't try to pat him. He has a hood on. We call it a hood, not a helmet, not a hat. Man has been using these for a couple thousand years on falcons. It's just a way to calm them. Okay, you don't leave this on the falcon all the time. You only use it in certain instances. It's like putting blinders on a horse in a parade. Now, the Eagle's travel box and everything else I bring take a lot of room up in the vehicle. So sometimes Time has to ride on his little perch, okay? And so he's not banging around back there, you know, the windows and everything. I just put a little hood on him, and he can't see through this, but we'll take it off. Come here. There we go. And he can see. And so again, I just want to reiterate that that's all we use the hood for. When he goes home, he's in his mews or cage, and it's not like a little cage like a parrot cage, folks. It's big. I mean, it's like 10 by 10, 10 by 12. These cages are large walk-in structures for each bird that you have to have. This is a peregrine falcon. They are the fastest bird in the world. They can go up in excess of 2,500 feet in the air and come down over 200 miles an hour. They are a bird-eating bird. They do not take mice or you know, rodents, anything on the ground quarry. They take birds out of the air, mostly pigeons. They can be found along the Mississippi River, high-rise buildings. In Milwaukee, have nested on the tall banks. The tall banks. He moved his foot really quick there, you know. I've never seen anybody move that quick. Sorry about that. Just don't step in that. These birds were endangered at one time. We had 10,000 nesting pairs of peregrine falcons in the United States, and we went down to under 300 total because of the use of DDT, which was an insecticide that caused a thinning of shells or the females to become sterile. Falconers who fly these birds went to the government and said, look, you know, let us have the opportunity to try to captive breed these birds and bring them back. And they did successfully. There were 6 falconers initially who had captive breeding programs and reintroduced the peregrine by putting up a box. Now, they don't bring in sticks. They put like gravel in the bottom of these boxes and put them on power plants, as I mentioned, or in the cliffs. And pretty soon, they started nesting. 10 years ago, they were delisted nationally, and in Wisconsin, we have made a nice recovery, and we are looking, and I'm actually part of that process of discussing with the Wisconsin DNR of delisting the peregrine falcon. They are built for speed, folks. I mean, they have boomerang-shaped wings. We call them long wings because they have long wings for a bird its size. His body weight is only 18 ounces. He's what we call an anatom. There's actually subspecies. There's anatoms, tundras, and peels, peregrine falcons. They can be found everywhere in the world except the Antarctica. Their name peregrine means to wander because they can migrate 20,000 miles at a time. And he's straightening up for you too as well. So,
Getting adjusted.
yeah. Falcons have a mallard stripe, which is like a sideburn, a large dark eye, They have more of a blocky head. They do a little more of a head bobbing, which is an eye focus. There's been more written about them than any bird species in the world. There's actually a pair. Actually, there was a box on the top of the state capitol building, and they nested there. They took it down for renovations. And then when I was at the state capitol in January, we had actually discussed the possibility of putting another box back up with cams. And, you know, it's trying to get a group of people between you have, you know, one group, birding group, you know, and rehabbers and educators and the DNR. And in the meantime, to try to decide who was going to put the box up, a pair moved in on the MG&E building 2 blocks away, nested and had babies, and took care of the whole problem for the people. So, because there's no point now, you know, because they have an established territory, which is about 2 to 3 square miles. So you wouldn't want to put another box in. They would just drive those birds out. He's molting. You can see he's got new feathers coming in the back. He's 2 years old. He was born in captivity. This is not a bird taken from the wild. We do not take peregrine falcons from the wild. He was born in a breeding program in South Dakota. And actually, We Energies, Wisconsin Energy Corporation, gave me a donation 2 years ago to add time to my program. So I do some flight demonstrations with him sometimes. I know a few people ask me about flying him. He would need, like, we would all have to go over to the football field and not do it today because, one, I've already fed him, it's warm and what have you, but on a cooler day, sometimes in the fall and the winter, I do some flight demonstrations with him. Any questions about him? Isn't he beautiful? You have a question?
How do you tell if falcons are boys or girls?
In all the bird of prey species, okay, like all falcons, all hawks, eagles, and vultures, the females, the girls are bigger. So there's no difference between color between a male and female peregrine, but the females are going to be like 30% bigger.
Wow.
That's how you tell.
Is he gonna get any bigger?
No, remember when I was talking about the eagle? They go from birth to 10 weeks. They're as big as they're going to be. He's 2 years old. So when he was 6 weeks old, the little birds grow a little bit faster. 6 weeks old, he was this big.
Wow.
Okay, so they grow really, really fast. Okay, any other questions?
Why do birds usually fly?
Why do they fly? Well, that's a long answer. Because they were blessed with that. That's why. Because we can't. Because they have feathers and wings, and it's just the way that they're all put together. And I think it's pretty neat, don't you, to watch them fly and that they can fly? Yeah. I wish I could show you him flying. That's what he's doing right now. He's just, kind of beating his wings, thinking, he's getting warmed up, all revved up. Plus, yes.
In the Madison capital, or in a large city where the nest is, what would their food be?
Mainly pigeons, starlings, sparrows. Yeah. Okay, put his little hood back on him here. If you ever have the opportunity, folks, usually the 2nd and 3rd week of June, you can go along the Mississippi River, anywhere from Dubuque all the way up to the, past the Minnesota border. And there are peregrines nesting in the cliffs, and they also nest on power plants. And you can look it up online. You can find all kinds of them. But that is the most fun time to watch them because it's when the young take their first flight and the parents are teaching their kids how to hunt. So what they do is they get them really hungry, and maybe the dad, the male, he'll go out and he'll catch like a sparrow, okay? He kind of teases his kids. He flies around, and they start chasing, and then he drops it and they grab it. And that's the way they learn to use their feet and grab birds out of midair. But it's a lot of fun because they're real aerial, and they get really aggressive. I mean, they'll chase these poor eagles and vultures away and just go up underneath them and grab them and everything. It's really a spectacle to see, but it's just really, being part of that experience. Okay, I have one more falcon I want to show you. And this is Jack. And now peregrines have a different personality than this type of falcon do. Peregrines tend to be a little more calm. These are, no, it's not a goshawk. It's a gyrfalcon. A gyrfalcon. It's a gyrfalcon, G-Y-R, like in gyroscope. They fly in big, huge rings. His name is Jack. He was born in captivity. He was given to me by a friend a couple of years ago. He's 4 years old now. This is an Arctic falcon. If this was a 90-degree today, a 90-degree day today, I would not have brought him, okay? Just because that heat is very stressful for them. And so we have a special place that we keep him when it's really, really hot. Otherwise, you know, Jack just kind of stays out where everybody else does. But when it's January and February and it's really cold, Jack really likes it. And he really likes to fly and be outside. Gyrfalcons are the largest of the falcons. The whites are the largest. They also are gray and black. And there's no reason for that. You could breed a black with a white. It's like lab puppies. You can get a variety of colors. And there's no distinction between male and female in color again. It's just size. Gyrfalcons are very quick. They will go very high like a peregrine, but they fly in bigger rings, what's called waiting on, and they will pursue something much further than a peregrine. A peregrine might chase something 3 miles and give up. These birds in the Arctic will go 50 miles after a duck, a ptarmigan, or something else. I mean, they are a bird of pursuit. Very, very fast. They have very long toes. They like to nest in cliff ledges. They were never affected by DDT because they were in, you know, cold places like Greenland, Iceland, Alaska, Canada, where they weren't using those pesticides. So there's always been a pretty healthy population of gyrfalcons. Gyrfalcons will sometimes migrate down into like the extreme part of northern Wisconsin, Montana, Minnesota during winter months. People will see them. And so this gentleman up here had asked me if, beginning the program, if I heard of the white ghost. I thought this is what he was referring to because they do call them the white ghost. He was talking about something else. This is also the kind of bird that was presented to Prince Andrew by the Prince of Abu Dhabi. So just wanted to show you that. What do I feed my birds at home? A lot of people ask me that. What do you feed them at home? Well, for the falcons, because a lot of them eat like pigeons and birds in the wild, I have to like buy frozen quail from a quail farm. It's very expensive. Sometimes the Rock County Sheriff's Department will bring out or call us rather, for roadkill deer for the eagle. Sometimes we get like a donation of rats and mice, or we have to buy them, which gets very expensive. For like the owls that we have, I do have owl species. I do rehab, as I mentioned before, but owl species, hawk species, and sometimes the vultures. Sometimes the vultures just get everybody's leftovers because that's kind of what they like, you know. So I'm gonna, to close, I've kept you fine folks sitting here for long enough, and I think you're probably about ready to run out of tape over there in the video. But thank you for inviting me today. It's been a pleasure to be here. He's gonna leave his calling card too. It is green, I know. It's been a pleasure to be here. It's been a pleasure to share my experience in the UK with everybody, and I hope everybody here will continue to embrace wildlife. I think the Sterling North Society is just great. I really do. I love the book. I love that we have books like that for children, and books like Frightful about the peregrine falcon that so many children read in 5th and 6th grade too. Keep reading. It's so important, okay? Very, very important, okay? Thank you very much.